Hey everyone, my name is David, and I want to share a story with you today that's very personal to me. I grew up in a devout Christian home where my parents were pastors. Faith was a central part of our lives, and the church was like a second home. But my journey took a different turn, and I want to tell you how I found my way back and what I learned along the way. Growing up, my life was deeply rooted in faith. My parents, as pastors, led the church with passion and devotion. From a young age, I was involved in every church activity, Sunday school, youth group, and even helping out at various events. It was a wonderful upbringing filled with a strong sense of community and purpose. However, as I entered my teenage years, things began to change. I started to feel the pressure of fitting in with my peers and seeking approval from people outside my faith circle. The excitement of new experiences and the desire to prove myself led me down a different path. I began to drift away from the values I'd been raised with. When I went to college, the freedom and independence were exhilarating. I was focused on building a successful career, and the more I immersed myself in that world, the further I drifted from my faith. The environment was filled with influences that were quite contrary to what I had known. Social pressures, late nights, and the chase for success became my new priorities. I started to miss church more frequently, and when I did attend, I felt disconnected. The spiritual practices that once felt natural now seemed distant and irrelevant. My relationship with God, once vibrant and central to my life, became just a memory. It wasn't until I hit a low point in my career that things began to change. Despite outward success, I felt an overwhelming emptiness inside. My achievements seemed hollow, and the sense of fulfillment I had been chasing was elusive. I was questioning my purpose and my choices. One day, during a particularly challenging period, I decided to visit my parents' church again. I was hesitant, but something deep inside me wanted to reconnect with my roots. Walking into that familiar place felt surreal. The memories of my upbringing came flooding back, and I felt a stirring within my soul. During a worship service, I experienced something profound. The familiar hymns and prayers took on new meaning, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a genuine connection with God. It was like coming home after a long journey. I realized that my life had been out of alignment, and I had been missing the peace and joy that comes from a relationship with God. As the music and prayers reached a crescendo, I felt an urge to let go and open my heart. I was surrounded by people who were speaking in tongues, their voices mingling in a symphony of divine communication. I joined in, and to my astonishment, words began to flow from my mouth in a language I didn't understand. It was a surreal experience, a direct connection to something greater than myself. The moment I began speaking in tongues, I felt an extraordinary sense of joy and fulfillment. It was as if I had tapped into a wellspring of divine energy and purpose. The emptiness I had felt for so long started to dissipate, replaced by a profound sense of direction and peace. It was a turning point that reshaped my entire life. I began to make changes. I reconnected with my church community, sought guidance from my parents, and started integrating spiritual practices back into my daily life. It was a gradual process, but I found that the more I sought God, the more I felt His presence guiding me and healing the parts of me that had been broken. Speaking in tongues had reignited my faith and set me on a path of meaningful impact. I now see that my experience was not just a spiritual event, but a pivotal moment of transformation. It reshaped my life, giving me a new vision and purpose. I'm grateful for the divine encounter that led me to live a life filled with fulfillment and service, and I hope to inspire others to seek their own moments of spiritual breakthrough. I've learned a lot about speaking in tongues through my own experience and the stories of others. For me, it's been a profound and enlightening journey. Here's what I've discovered. First, a deeper connection with God. When I first experienced speaking in tongues, it was like opening a new door in my spiritual life. It allowed me to communicate with God in a way that felt incredibly intimate and direct. There was a sense of connection that went beyond words, a feeling of being in the presence of something greater than myself. It was as if my spirit was expressing things that my mind couldn't fully articulate. Second, emotional release and healing. One of the most significant benefits I've noticed is the emotional release it provides. During moments of intense prayer and speaking in tongues, I felt a weight lifted from my shoulders. It's like a deep spiritual cleansing that helps release pent-up emotions and fears. It's not just about speaking a different language, it's about releasing the burdens that have been weighing me down. Third, renewed spiritual strength. Speaking in tongues has been a source of renewed strength and spiritual vitality. It's a practice that helps me stay grounded and refreshed in my faith. Whenever I face challenges or feel spiritually dry, this gift rejuvenates me and reminds me of the power and presence of the Holy Spirit in my life. Fourth, greater understanding and insight. Through speaking in tongues, I've found that it opens up new avenues of understanding and insight. It's not always about what I'm saying, but about how it shifts my perspective and deepens my awareness of God's will. It often brings clarity to my prayers and helps me see things from a different angle. Lastly, building up my faith. Speaking in tongues has been a powerful tool for building up my faith. It strengthens my spiritual resolve and helps me stay connected to God's promises. It's a reminder that my relationship with God is dynamic and evolving, and it encourages me to keep pursuing a deeper connection with Him. Overall, speaking in tongues has enriched my spiritual journey in ways I didn't anticipate. It's brought me closer to God, provided emotional healing, and renewed my faith. I've learned that it's not just a spiritual practice, but a powerful gift that can transform and uplift every aspect of my life. Here's what my journey taught me, and what I hope you take away from my story. First, stay grounded in your faith. No matter where life takes you, remember the foundation of your faith. It's easy to drift when you're not anchored, but staying connected to God provides direction and stability. Second, embrace the journey of return. It's never too late to come back to your faith. The journey of returning might be challenging, but it's also incredibly rewarding. God welcomes us back with open arms no matter how far we've wandered. Third, seek balance. Pursuing a career and experiencing new things are important, but don't let them overshadow your spiritual life. Find a balance that allows you to thrive in all areas of your life while keeping God at the center. Fourth, value the support of community. My parents and my church community played a crucial role in my return to faith. Surround yourself with supportive people who can help guide and encourage you along your journey. I'm grateful for the chance to share my story with you today. My path wasn't always straightforward, but through it all, I've learned the importance of staying connected to my faith and finding my way back to God. I hope my experience encourages you to remain steadfast in your journey and to always seek a deeper relationship with God, no matter where life leads you. Thank you for listening, and I'm excited to see how God will work in each of your lives as you continue to seek Him.
Now, let me ask you, have you ever wondered what speaking in tongues does? 1. Spiritual edification. Speaking in tongues builds up one's spirit. In 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 4, Paul explains that speaking in tongues edifies the individual believer. It involves direct interaction with God through the Holy Spirit, fostering deeper spiritual growth. 2. Enhanced prayer life. Speaking in tongues allows the Holy Spirit to intercede for us. Romans chapter 8, verse 26 highlights that the Spirit helps us in our weakness. This form of prayer goes beyond our understanding, expressing deep needs to God. 3. Strengthening faith. Jude chapter 1, verse 20 encourages praying in the Holy Spirit. Speaking in tongues strengthens faith through direct communication with God. It deepens the believer's relationship with God, enhancing spiritual strength. 4. Sign of the Holy Spirit's presence. Speaking in tongues shows the Holy Spirit's presence. In Acts chapter 2, verse 4, the apostles spoke in tongues as evidence of being filled with the Holy Spirit. It marked the outpouring of the Spirit and the birth of the early church. 5. Personal worship. Speaking in tongues allows for direct worship of God. 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 2 notes that speaking in tongues is speaking to God. It fosters a unique connection with God, enhancing worship. What do you think?
Friends, we all go through seasons in life. Times of joy, times of peace, and yes, times when we feel lost. I want to share a time when I felt stuck, unsure of my direction. This isn't just my story though. It's a testament to the power of faith, a story I believe can resonate with your journey too. For a while I felt like I was going through the motions. The joy seemed distant, the purpose unclear. I prayed of course, but it felt like my words were hitting a ceiling. Something had to change, but I didn't know what. Looking back, I see that God was preparing me, nudging me toward a breakthrough. He often works that way, you know? He lets us wrestle a bit so that when the victory comes, we understand its value even more. He allows us to thirst so that when we drink from His living water, we're forever changed. And that's what happened to me. I had built walls around my heart, walls made of worry and doubt. I didn't realize how much I was carrying, how heavy the burden had become. My prayers, once filled with hope, had become routine, lacking the fervency of true belief. I knew deep down that God had more for me, but I couldn't see the path forward. My spirit felt sluggish, bogged down by the weight of my own limitations. It's easy to fall into that trap, isn't it? We let fear dictate our steps, and we forget the power that resides within us. The enemy wants us to stay stuck, to believe that we're not worthy or capable of receiving God's blessings. But let me tell you something. The enemy is a liar. You are a child of the Most High God, and you have access to His limitless power. One day, a friend invited me to a church conference. Now, I've always been a man of faith, but something stirred within me that day. The message resonated deeply, speaking directly to the dryness I felt in my soul. The pastor spoke about the Holy Spirit, about the gifts available to those who believe. And then it happened. During worship, I felt a warmth spread through me, a tingling sensation like electricity. It wasn't frightening, it was comforting, like a warm embrace from a loving Father. And then, words began to flow from my lips, words I didn't understand, but they were filled with such power, such love. It was the gift of tongues, a language I had never learned but one that my spirit recognized. In that moment, the walls I had built around my heart crumbled. Tears streamed down my face as I experienced the overwhelming love and presence of God in a way I never thought possible. That experience, friends, changed my life forever. It opened my eyes to the reality of God's power, to the truth that He desires to move in our lives in extraordinary ways. But we have to be open to His gifts, open to His leading, open to the possibility that He wants to do something amazing in and through us. The healing I experienced that day wasn't just emotional, it was spiritual. The weight I had been carrying lifted, replaced by a lightness of being I had never known. It was as if a veil had been lifted, and I could finally see clearly the path God had laid out for me. The experience also ignited a passion within me, a desire to share this incredible gift with others. I realized that God had a plan for my life, a purpose that extended far beyond anything I could have imagined. After that day, I dedicated myself to learning more about the Holy Spirit, to cultivating a deeper relationship with God. I began to study the Bible with a newfound hunger, and the words leaped off the pages with fresh revelation. The fear and doubt that had plagued me for so long began to dissipate, replaced by a confident assurance in God's goodness and faithfulness. I discovered my purpose, my calling to share God's love and message of hope with the world. It wasn't always easy, but every step of the way, I felt God's guiding hand leading me, strengthening me, and empowering me to fulfill the destiny He had planned for me. Friends, I believe that God has a plan and purpose for your life too. Don't be afraid to step out in faith and ask Him to reveal it to you. He is a good Father, and He delights in blessing His children. My prayer for you today is that you would experience the transformative power of the Holy Spirit in your own life. Don't settle for a mundane, ordinary existence when God has something extraordinary in store for you. Open your heart to His possibilities and watch in amazement as He does exceedingly